Good afternoon to all my dear students. Welcome to the lecture series of the morphology of flowers. Today we are going to study the last part of the morphology of flowers, that is about the Gynoecium part 2. I am Dr. Rajendra Shevde, HOD, Department of Botany, Arts, Commerce and Science College, Lanza, Ratnagiri. Welcome you all to this lecture. It is the last part of the Gynoecium, ovary. Earlier we have studied about the stigma and style. So last part, ovary. Let's see what is ovary. Ovary is the most important part of the carpel as it contains the ovule which developed into seeds. A carpel without a functional ovary is sterile. Keep in mind that if the carpel do not possess or contain any functional ovary, then it is called as sterile. The foliar origin of the ovary is rather clear in the simple ovary of pea. It is even clearer in the flattened ovary of its relative Colchia arborescens. One may easily realize that a leaf-like carpel, that is a megasporophyll as seen in the gymnosperm, is folded about its midrib and forms a chamber by the fusion of margins. There is a special tissue called placenta along the margin and a marginal line along which the carpel fuses is called the ventral suture, whereas the midrib being the dorsal suture. Ovules develop from this placental tissue and remains within the ovary chamber. Always keep in mind that the placenta is a tissue which is found along the margin and marginal line where the carpel fuses, and that fusion is called as ventral suture, whereas the midrib is called as dorsal suture, and all the ovules which are developed will be on the placental tissue and remains in the ovary or ovary chamber. So this is the diagram which shows you the ovary position of ovules, where we can see that this one is a ventral suture as earlier explained, and here we can see the dorsal suture in case of pea. This is the fruit of the pea where these rounded structures are nothing but a seed. We can clearly see the ventral suture and the dorsal suture. Also here also we can see the ventral suture and the dorsal suture. So this is the pod of the pea and how it splits along the ventral suture and the dorsal suture. Then B is the whole pod, whereas C is the cut transversely into two halves. Now note the placenta, where the placenta is present on the ventral suture, not on the dorsal suture. And last, that is the inflated ovary of Coletus arborescens. So that is looks like a folded leaf. When more than one carpel form the ovary of a compound gynoecium, the different carpels may fuse along the margins, giving the appearance of a one-chambered ovary. What has been mentioned, that more than one carpel form the ovary of a compound gynoecium. The different carpels may fuse along the margin, giving appearance of one-chambered ovary. Another way of joining the carpels may be as shown in the figure. In this latter case, each carpel first fuses along its own margin, and then the three carpel fuses so that the ventral sutures all meet together at the axis of the ovary, which is latter is clearly divided into as many loculi or chambers as there are carpels. The ovaries of Syncarpus pistils are frequently formed as in the second case, but sometimes the number of chambers does not correspond to the number of carpels due to the development of false partition wall or septa within the ovary chamber. Thus, many bicarpellary flowers of Solanaceae like Datura or Brinjal show 4-chambered ovaries. Such false partition wall usually develop as outgrowth of the placenta. In this diagram, we can clearly see there is a union of carpels. Okay, so this is what the ventral suture. As the ventral suture fuses, you can see that there is no fusion towards the margin or towards the axis. But sometimes this ventral suture extends, and that extension looks like there is a partition. So this is just a fusion along the margin, which is shown in the figure A, whereas in figure B, it shows that the fusion along the margin to form an axial column. So the extension of the ventral suture, when they unite or they fuses with each other of every carpel, it forms a axis or axial column. So this way the placentation occurs. Again we can see that there is an extension of the ventral suture. So up to this we have studied what is the ovary, what is the stigma, and what is style, and what are the types of ovary. Ovary means how exactly the placentation is there, what is ventral suture, what is dorsal suture, and depending upon the folding or infoldings or extension of the ventral suture, there is a special tissue which is present in the ovary called as placenta. Depending upon the structure and position of placenta, the placentation is the term which is used for the modification of ovary. So what exactly placentation? It has already been seen that the placental tissue develops along the margin of the megaporous wheel, so that when the latter closes to form a chamber, the placenta is located along the ventral suture. Always keep in mind that placenta is situated or located along the ventral suture. But margin is not the only place where the placenta develops. Margin is not the only places where the placenta develops. Placenta may also develop on a direct prolongation of the thalamus at the base of the carpels also. As a result, we get different types of placentation. That is nothing but the distribution of placenta in different ovaries. So let's see what are those. As this placenta is the tissue on which the ovules or the future seed develop, a study of placentation is of very importance in the study of the fruit and flower. So in Gynoecium, while studying the stigma, style and ovary and the modifications in stigma, style and ovary, placentation is one of the most important things, which is nothing but the base of the study of fruit and the flower. So let's see what are those placentation types. The following types of the placentations usually are: first one, marginal. There is a placentation of the simple ovary of pea. It is also called as a matar, Leguminosae. The pea ovary is developed by the union of one megasporophyll along the ventral suture. The placenta form a ridge along this suture, and the ovules are born on this, forming two rows. The ovary is one-chambered and superior. So here the arrangement of ovules along with the placenta is on the margin. That's why this placentation is termed as marginal. Second one is parietal. When two or more carpels unite along the ventral sutures as shown in the figure, the ovules also are located on the placenta along these sutures. The ovary is unilocular, as may be seen in papaver, but in Cucurbitaceae showing this type of placentation, the ovary becomes falsely two-chambered by the development of a false partition wall called rhapellum. Ovaries of many cucurbitaceous plants, of course also parietal, become falsely trilocular or even hexalocular because of the lateral projection of the placental tissue. Third one, axile. As shown in the number of carpel independently form chambers, as in the marginal type, foldings inward and then fusing together so that the ventral suture are all placed along the axis. In this case, what exactly happens? There is more and more extension of the ventral suture and it turns inward again, forming a axis. So this is termed axile as all the placenta, and therefore the ovules are axile. The ovary is divided into as many as chamber as there are carpels. This is found in Solanaceae, Malvaceae, Rutaceae, Liliaceae and many more. But here also the number of chambers may increase by the development of false partition walls. Fourth is basal. In Compositae, that is also called as Asteraceae, a single ovule is developed at the base of the unilocular simple ovary. The placenta is apparently placed on the tip of the thalamus at the floor of the ovary. Fifth one, free central. In this type, the ovules are found to develop on an axial column which is not connected with the ovary wall. Now there is no connection. In case of the axial presentation, there is a connection with the ovary wall, but here it is free central, that the axial column is not at all connected with the wall of the ovary. Such an ovary may arise in two different types. The first one, in a placentation which was originally axial, the partition walls may break down at the latter stage, making the ovary falsely one-chambered. This is the case in the family of Caryophyllaceae. It is also called as a pink flower plant. Whereas the second way be the thalamus may slightly extend into the ovary and placenta may develop on it as in the family of Primulaceae. So these are the two different ways where you can see the different positions or different illustration of the free central placentation. The sixth one is the superficial. Here the multicarpellary flower of Nymphea, which is also called as a water lily or a lotus, develops multilocular ovaries in which the whole inner walls of the chamber are lined with placental tissue, so that ovule develops all around. This is really an overdevelopment of the axial type. The placenta spreading to the chamber walls forms the axial column. This is a very peculiar and advanced type of placentation. So these all are the 6 types of placentation. See how it looks. Here we can see different types of placentation. In A we can see it's a marginal, where B shows the parietal placentation, then C shows the trilocular type of placentation, or B so shows the mustard where the falsely bilocular. Then comes the C, it is a cucumber which shows the falsely trilocular where there is no axial placentation, but it looks like axial placentation. Then the next figure, that is 380, it shows the A figure, which is nothing but a typical axial placentation, and next it shows the normal bilocular and with false placentation. Here we can see these are the false placenta. Then in the case of the figure number C, which is nothing but a datura showing the tetralocular ovary by formation of the false placenta, and the last is the axial inferior ovary of a lily. So this is about the first three, marginal, parietal and axial. Now last are these different presentation. The first one, figure 381, is of the basal presentation found in composite. Figure number 382, it shows the free central. Then it shows two. One shows the TS, where we can see that the axis is not at all connected with the ovary wall. At the same time, when we look at the LS of the primary member, where also we can see that axis is not connected with the wall of the ovary, where it shows the column of a placenta seems to be projection of the thalamus. And last is a figure number 383. It's superficial. It is the TS of the ovary of water lily. So these are the different types of placentation we can see. Sorry for the disturbance. Last part of this is nothing but the main portion which is present in the ovary, called as ovule. The ovule is the megasporangium contained within the ovary. There may be one or more ovules inside an ovary, and these are destined to be the seeds. When fully formed, the tissue in a typical ovule are as follows. The ovule is attached to placenta by the funicle. The attachment, the tissue of attachment of ovule with placenta is called as funicle or funiculus, which meets the ovule at the hilum. An ovule devoid of an any funicle or directly attached to placenta is termed as sessile. Raphe is an extension of the funicle and may extend it up to the chalaza, which is the base of the ovule. So chalaza is the base of the ovule, where funicle is the attachment of ovule to the placenta, whereas the extension of the funicle is nothing but called as a raphe. So funicle is extended toward the chalaza, and the portion between the chalaza and funicle is called as raphe, and the attachment of ovule to the placenta is called as funicle. The general tissue of the ovule is called as nucellus and embryo sac. Embryo sac, which contains the female gametophyte within the megaspore, which is in the top part of it. The ovule is enveloped by two covering known as integuments. The outer is outer, then one more is inner, which have an opening called as a micropyle at the top. Abnormally, there may be single integument, as in present in composite, while in some parasites like Loranthus or Viscum, there may be no integument. The ovule in the anatropous or reverse type, which is the commonmost and may be seen in pea, bean, castor, etc. When the ovule remains straight, as in Polygonaceae, Piperaceae, Urticaceae, it is called as orthotropous or atropous. It is also called as amphitropous when placed transversely at right angles to the funicle. This condition is not common, but is met with the ranunculus or lemna and poppy. Sometimes a transverse ovule may be bent like a horseshoe, so that the micropyle is brought nearer to the chalaza. This is camphilotropous or curved type condition found in many plants of Cruciferae, Chenopodiaceae, Caryophyllaceae and more, and some other plants like Mirabilis, which is nothing but a member of Nyctiginaceae family. So this is the structure of an ovule. We can see at the base the attachment of ovule to the placenta called as funicle. Then on the right side, the chalaza, which is the base of the ovule. The connection between the chalaza and funicle is called as raphe. There is a attachment. There is a tissue which is present between the funicle and chalaza called as hilum. Then nucellus or the embryo sac which is present inside the ovule. Then the whole embryo sac is covered by two covering called as outer and inner integuments, leaving a small opening at the top which is called as micropyle. The embryo sac contains various cells, egg cells, synergids and antibody cells. So this is the typical longitudinal section of a typical ovule. These are the different types of ovules. The first one, A, that is orthotropous, where the axis of or the line of the chalaza, funicle, chalaza and embryo sac and micropyle is in one line. The B figure, which is amphitropous, where the axis of chalaza, embryo sac, micropyle is perpendicular to the funicle. And is camphilotropous, where the axis of chalaza is perpendicular, means axis of chalaza and funicle is same, whereas the axis of the embryo sac is curved and the micropyle is coming towards the chalazal or funicle. So these are the three different types of ovules we can see. Lastly, the position of the ovule in the ovary chamber, especially in ovaries containing single ovules, may be of different types. The first one is called as erect, as in composite. The second one, B, pendulous, that is nothing but hanging from top, as in some Ananasi. Then third one, ascending, rising obliquely from a side of the ovary wall and not the direct base, as in some Ranunculaceae member. The fourth one, suspended, hanging from side of the wall but not the exact top, as in the castor. Or the last one, fifth one, horizontal, as in podophyllum. So these are the different positions of the ovule. We can see A, B, C, D and E in this figure. The A one which shows the erect, whereas the B shows the pendulous, where the attachment is at the top. Then C shows the ascending, where it looks like ascending one from the one side of the wall of the ovary. D is suspended, where it is not attached at the top but on the margin, and it looks like a suspended but not like pendulous. And the one horizontal, where this attachment of the ovule is on the ovary wall and is perpendicular to the funicle. So these are the different positions of the ovule in the ovary. So with this we end with the study of gynoecium with part 2, and that's end with the morphology of flower. Last 6 lectures we have gone through the morphology of flowers, starting with corolla, then calyx, starting with calyx, then corolla, then we gone through the androecium part 1 and part 2, then gynoecium part 1 and part 2, and we complete with this with the morphology of flower. So I request all students to go through the videos, then learn it properly, study it well, and if you have any questions and queries, please do SMS me or WhatsApp me. Thanks a lot for listening to this video. Thank you very much.